There's like a lot of people are probably like, you don't need that kind of thing. That's just needless fanciness. And it's like, you know what? If you grew up with the Dreamcast and you played the Dreamcast regularly, I'll agree with you because at the time I did not have a problem with the 64 controller. The issue was I didn't play the 64 for several years, for like a good amount of time, and when I came back to it, I don't know, maybe I've been spoiled by actual good controller design. And so when I first get my Dreamcast, I've been spoiled by actual good controller design. And so there's the Retro Fighters Kickstarter that once they're done and they're actually producing them, I'm definitely going to see if I can pick one up. It's a really good looking design for the Dreamcast controller. It still has the VMU port, which is, it's essential for Dreamcast. You need the VMU. Is this going to be the bath? Oh, I hate this area.
The bath.
Controller cable that goes through the top rather than the bottom, which that's an awful design. And almost every third-party controller for the Dreamcast I looked into still has the wire come out of the bottom. It's like, yeah, I understand why, because the VMU port is on the top. Doesn't make it a good design though. Yeah, come on. Farah, if you could move away from enemies that are stood right in front of you about to attack, I would really appreciate that. I'd consider it a personal favour. Like, it gets to the point in this game where your biggest problem with combat encounters is Farah. Like, she'll just be stood in the way, and she will not move. And so you end up having to fight around her, because all the enemies are around her and they won't move. They're focused on her, she won't move to get away from them, despite being an archer. And so the entire thing becomes, okay, take out the enemies fast enough so that they can't kill Farah. And it gets to be like the single most irritating part of the combat. You blocked my counter. Get out of the way, hit you. Like, she can stun the enemies, which is really helpful. And it's nice to turn around and see an enemy that's been stunned by Farah. Like that, oh, there's another enemy that's been stunned by Farah, and it's one of the irritating guys that are blocking me, so, hey, let me just do a quick hit and take them down. But for the love of God, Farah, have some sense about your positioning and get away from these enemies. I can't get through you, Farah. I have no idea what actually determines when Farah... I have no idea what determines when Farah will... what determines when enemies will decide to target Farah. Whether it's a certain number of hits she has to deal to them, or... well, if you don't hit an enemy enough, they'll decide to go for Farah instead. I don't know. I do feel like calling it a session here. We've played for a good amount of time. However, this part coming up is a part that It's a part that I hate, and I remember every time previously that I played through it, I forgot how to deal with it. But as it is at the minute, I remember. And so I want to get this bit done while I remember. it shouldn't be too long to the next save point, so we'll keep going for a little bit more, then we'll call it a session. The good news is, when we get to Warrior Within, that game does have subtitles, and the prince doesn't talk to himself as much. Pretty sure Warrior Within has subtitles.
I'm alright.
I know.
It also has more swearing. And by more swearing, like, I don't think this game has had any swearing. There's, like, you know, considerable amount of swearing. Alright.
Look! I'll be where it leads.
The irritating bit about this is you cannot get down to the bottom without taking damage. I always hate that in games. So it's one of my biggest issues with a bunch of the Souls games. Dark Souls does it a bunch. I'm pretty sure Bloodborne has done it several times, where you have to take damage from falling to progress. It's like the Bed of Chaos fight. To get to the Bed of Chaos fight in Dark Souls 1, you have to take falling damage. It's like, okay, you know, in all fairness, if you die in the Bed of Chaos fight, it's probably not going to be because you ran out of health, but still, the point stands. Oh look, a new sword. Yeah, these guys wouldn't irritate me so much if they couldn't block my counters. You know what, at least Farah, I think Farah is actually on the balcony above us. So at least she's not in the way for this fight. Get rid of the dancers first, because they're easy to take out. Yeah, like Warrior Within gets a bunch of flack for the considerably darker tone. This game is, despite the get out of the way you, despite the honestly horrific implications here, the tone is actually still fairly lighthearted, which is kind of weird when you think about it, but yeah. It's not the last one. This will get to be a big issue for the combat as we go. Oh, there she is. At least she's staying there. Yeah, this will get to be a big issue for the combat as we go on. We'll be fighting the enemies and taking out a considerable number of enemies, and then you'll just hear more teleporting in, and it will just go for so long. It's not like there's much variety in the combat. You can do all you want to try and spice the combat up, but in the end, like, there's only so much you can really do, and when every attack, every kill has to end with you stabbing the dagger into them, unless you freeze them with, get out of the way, unless you freeze them with the dagger and then cut them in half or something, when every attack has to end with stabbing them with the dagger to finish them. There's only so much you can really do with the combat. Warrior Within actually doesn't have the dagger mechanic, which I think is part of the reason why the combat is so much more lively. A lot of people will point to this game as the best of the trilogy. I think Warrior Within is better. And largely it's because of the combat. Like, the focus on the acrobatics is still there because, like, that is a considerable amount of the identity of the series. a lot of the identity of Sands of Time is the acrobatics.
Something glowing on it. I
But
saw it from the ledge.
Warrior Within still has that, but improves the combat, which is like, you may not be feeling it now, but by the time, like before the game ends, you'll probably be kind of tired of the combat. Alright, so we'll save the game and we will call it a session here. We'll eventually save the game. It's like, okay, we're about hour and 45 minutes in, and we are like 33%, over 33%, maybe 35% done.
From here next time.
No, it's not a long game. Right. So, let's call it an end to the session. I will catch you guys next time. And we're back with more Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. And interesting thing to note, we're actually recording at 1080p now.
Look! At the end of those 3 doors, there's some kind of lever.
Which is, it's really neat. I don't know whether it'll be really noticeable, but from this part onwards we'll be recording this in 1080p. So, you know, that's cool. So where were we?
Did it. Hurry, before it closes.
Right, the baths. Alright, I'm gonna wait for them both to close. That's one. So there's a sword up there that we're after. And that's our big objective for the minute. They both closed yet? No, the second one's still open. Because she stood on it. Will she stay there though? Because if she does, that'll be very helpful. I don't think she's actually intended to. I think that's actually just an accident. But it's convenient. Alright, let's move this thing. And what did that accomplish?
It's going down.
Oh, the water's gone, right. Opened up the, No, it didn't open up floodgates, just drained the water, which means I can do the platforming sequences. Yay! The platforming sequences are always my favourite thing, favourite part of stuff like this. Even as more games took influence through from the Prince of Persia series, like the Tomb Raider series, starting with Tomb Raider Legends, started doing a similar style of parkour thing, just without the wall running, because that would have been too obvious. There was Uncharted, of course. And my favourite part of them
I wonder
was...
what those levers do.
My favourite part of them was always just the platforming. Because it's really fun, they usually have some really neat environments to go with it.
That grating moves a bit.
There we go. Yeah, I wonder if the sound is this compressed on the other versions. I don't think it would be. I think it is going to be down to the smaller size of the GameCube discs. And I never noticed that before this playthrough. It's not like it ruins the game. I mean, you wouldn't turn around to Resident Evil 2 on the Nintendo 64 and say, oh, the sound's compressed, the game's ruined. I mean, if you would, then you've clearly got your priorities mixed up. Apparently just wasn't deep enough into the water there to take a drink. I wonder how that was actually connected and how it managed... How it...
Don't worry about me. I'll be fine here.
And how it managed to maintain its momentum from that distance. As far as I'm aware, there is no way to avoid grabbing that ledge on the way back up. It's not a bad thing, though, you know, a bit of a... kind of a checkpoint kind of thing. Yeah, we'll say it's a checkpoint kind of thing. Oh, that's the thing in the HD version that really bothers me. Rolling through the water, the splash effect glitches and doesn't play properly. That HD version is a mess. And it's like I said, the Splinter Cell HD version isn't much better. The only HD version Ubisoft put out that was actually worth a damn was Beyond Good and Evil. Which we'll do at some point. I do really like Beyond Good and Evil. That's another game that I had on GameCube that I really liked. The camera's not really acting the way it's supposed to. It's supposed to be a bunch of cinematic angles, like every time I take a drink since I've started this session, it's just kind of cancelled out the cinematic angle and just did it for the sand cloud. I'm not going all the way back round. That's better. But yeah, I do like these 3D... I do like these 3D parkour style games. I was very fond of Sands of Time when it came out, and then Warrior Within came out, and the combat was better. I really enjoyed it. Never actually finished Two Thrones. There was this one section that I could never get past. It wasn't for the lack of trying. But, you know, that's it's a big part of what these LPs are about. Go back and revisit stuff and finish stuff that we never finished. Finish stuff that I never finished. Play stuff that I'd never played. Get round to some stuff. It's motivation more than anything. Oh boy. Sometimes the cinematic angles really feel like they're in the wrong place. They're just going to keep coming for a little while, and that becomes the biggest issue with the combat in this game. That and the repetitious nature of it all. You can mix it up. There are options for counters. Not that counter. There's the dagger attacks. That looked kind of cool. There's the different acrobatic moves you have, like the ones you jump off the wall. Like that. which can be good to liven up the combat somewhat. But for the most part, most of the moves, the most effective move is just jumping over them and doing the double slash. Because at the end of the day, it's not about dealing damage, it's about knocking them down so you can take the sands. I think that is one area Warrior Within really improved with. It's not just that the combat is better, I think the combat is better because you don't have to always do the So you block my counter there and that's irritating. You don't have to end every fight by draining all the sands, it's just a deal enough damage to the enemies kind of thing, which I think works better for the combat in the long run. It means rather than always being aiming to knock them down, you are trying to empty a health bar, which means at that point is whatever works. In this, it's that the jump over double slash is just the most effective attack for knocking them down. It's not that it does more damage or anything. You know, I think the increase in enemy numbers is probably a response to the new swords, actually. Because we do get, is it 2 or 3 sword upgrades? This is that big sword at the end. But before that, is it 2 or 3? But then there, those swords are stronger than the previous swords, and so maybe to try and balance that, that's why the enemy count gets so high in battles, but it's, again, when you're not after dealing damage, you're just trying to knock them down. It's not a great idea. Alright, where do we need this? Bit to the left. That's good.
I think I see that glow you were talking about.
Oh yeah, I do see it. It's a sand cloud. Oh, that was a little off center. I always feel like those ones are gonna fall, like the ones like that when they start shaking like that, but most of them don't. And the new sword.